when people say a Master NLP transformational specialist, now I've personally seen you many times, so I know how good you are. Can you tell people a little bit about that? What does that actually mean?
In NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, there's different levels depending on how far you wanted to have studied. So the master refers to master practitioner. So there's practitioner level, master practitioner level, and then trainer. I'm actually a trainer, which means I get to certify new coaches and certify new practitioners, which is really cool when you get to watch people not only have the aha moments themselves, but then they have the skill sets to be able to go out and help others have the aha moments too, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, you know, when anyone jumps on your pages, they can see all the amazing testimonials from people. And you actually have this thing where sometimes you ask people to take a photo before and take a photo after. And without all the sort of words and all that sort of stuff that comes with it, you can actually see the transformation in their face. There's a confidence.
Let alone the energy that you get to feel. Like there's a beautiful energy difference too. You've got those people who are a little bit stuck, a little bit quiet, a little bit unsure of themselves. And then you watch them transform, not only facially, but just their energy, their stance, their posture, the way they communicate. They're now sure of themselves. Instead of being the quiet mouse, they're now, look at me, I'm ready to be seen, which is just really cool.
Yeah, I can definitely say that I felt that personally. I would go into the sessions a little bit unsure, a little bit stuck. And then literally after our sessions, I couldn't wait to go out into the world. Like the difference was yin and yang, you know, and be like, hey, like, here I am, you know, I've got a lot to offer. Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big difference. Hence the word transformational.
And that's what I love about that word. It is that, and it's transformational for whatever the client needs. Mm-hmm. Not what I want, not what I need. It's about the client and what they want and need. And half the time they don't know what that is yet. So it's about letting go of the baggage so that way what is meant for them or what was meant to be just happens beautifully and with such great alignment, because they just let go of the stuff and then the good stuff, ta-da, there it is. So yeah, transformation is certainly the right word, because people are not yet expecting exactly what you said. You weren't sure what you were expecting. Of course you're not, because you don't know what's on the other side yet. You haven't been there.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I mean, I'm one of those people who just love growing and developing and trying all different things to just really know who I am, get in touch with myself. Just one of those spiritual journey junkies, I guess. And when I would come into a session with you, sometimes you get to a point where you can't really access anymore. You know, you've got to, like, you've done the work, you kind of stop here. And then it's like, I can't access that. And with your sessions, you help people connect with that part that they can't access. Yeah.
Absolutely. I hear it a lot, like, oh my God, I can't see the future. There's like a brick wall in the way. There's a block. Well, of course there is. That's the unknown. It's the bit you haven't been into yet, because you've been in such a comfortable discomfort, familiarity, what's normal for you. Beyond the horizon is unknown. It's not clear yet, because you haven't broken through that barrier to get to it. And that's exactly what that wall is, or that unknown space. And it can be scary. Of course it is. But you didn't achieve great things in your comfort zone either. You've got to step out of that comfort zone to really achieve the awareness, the awakening, that everything people they're actually looking for. People are looking for something, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what that wall is. It's actually a good thing to identify there's a wall, because now you know what to break through.
Yeah, 100%. And there's an element of trust that goes with that, because I remember in my sessions with you, it was kind of scary. You know, it was really scary. I mean, I would think and consider that I know myself, like the back of the hand is not even a good analogy, more like just so well, so fine-tuned being an empath. You kind of have to be to navigate what's yours and what somebody else is in this world. So you would take me to a place, and all your other clients, where it is so unfamiliar that it becomes scary. And as the sessions go on, you have to trust that your spirit is guiding you. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Absolutely. And that's even what I remember saying to you a couple of times. You've got to trust me, and you've got to trust the process, because I'm going to take you into a world you've never been to.
Yeah.
That's what growth is. That's what transformation is. You know, there's a couple of different analogies. It's, you know, you're currently the caterpillar in the cocoon. You've actually got to fight to get out of that cocoon to become the beautiful butterfly. If I do the fight for you and cut you out of that cocoon, If you cut a caterpillar out of cocoon, you kill the butterfly.
Yeah, I love that
So
story.
you actually have to let people fight through that. Bloody uncomfortable, of course it is. But that's why you have a coach, and that's why you have someone guide you through a process that they've already been through, so they know what's on the other side. They know how to safely and effectively help you through that, hold your hand, so to speak, through that process. But you've got to come through it, because if you don't, you'll go back to familiarity, which is stuckness. No one's comfortable there in the way of growth. They're comfortable in familiarity, but not in growth, and not in success, and not in abundance, and not in all those other beautiful things that we're actually always searching for. So yeah, scary, or do we call it exciting?
I like exciting.
It's the same feeling. The body actually doesn't know the difference between fear and excitement. It's the same feeling. It's the same change of heart rate. It's the same change of breath. It's the same, you get all red or flustered. It's the same feeling, but the body doesn't know the difference. And we can choose to label it fear, or we can choose to label it excitement.
Yeah, totally.
One's empowering.
When I was coming to interview today, I was like, oh, am I feeling anxious? I'm like, no, that I'm actually excited. But the body is recognizing it as the same thing, because it's the same, responses in the body.
Exactly.
So today we wanted to pick your brain about how does one find their own personal power, and by doing so, how does that attract your soulmate? I think that's like a juicy topic for a lot of people. I personally definitely want to know that.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of different things to discuss here. So we'll break down a couple of the elements, so that way, the people listening can apply it to their own journey and really understand what it means for them. So personal power, if we just break that down, what does that really mean for people?
Yeah, what is power?
What is power?
Yeah.
And for everyone, it's going to be different. For some people, it could be just being seen, being heard, standing on their own 2 feet. For others, it's being in control or showing leadership, or whatever that is. So for each person, it's so unique and individual. And I love that, because everyone's on their own journey. Everyone has their own personality traits. Everyone has their own uniqueness. We're not meant to be the same. We're not here to be the same. So what personal power is for self, in my opinion, is actually standing up into your own space, owning your own space, and being congruent with that, really, really understanding and owning who you are, not labeling it, just understanding and appreciating it, that we all have our own unique qualities, and we all have our own abilities, and embracing that, not running away from it, not being arrogant with it, but just really owning it and being who you are, being safe in who you are, being courageous in who you are, and then being really authentic, living with integrity with who you really are. And so many people just don't know what or who that is. So by letting go of baggage and letting go of past crappy beliefs, and really striving for your own personal growth, is where personal power is either developed, created, or found, depending on which way you look at it. And I find it a really beautiful process for people, because everyone does it differently. But it's recognizing that when you get to that point where you go, oh my God, I am me, and that is enough. I am me, and that is perfect in its own way. That to me is personal power. Not striving to be someone I'll never be, not striving to be like someone I'll never be like. Being me and really owning me. And I think that really guides nicely into the next part of what you want to talk about there, with finding your soulmate. If we break that down into the elements of that, a soulmate for most people would be someone who gets them, someone who is on the same page, someone who has not necessarily the same interests, but similar interests or mutual agreement to interests. So that way there's no major conflicts in the interests, or at least the recognition, well, you can do you and I can do me, and we can still coexist, rather than it being literally, butting heads all the time. A soulmate is really someone who gets you, really understands you at a deep level, not the image or the picture you put on, you, who you really are, who you naturally are.
Like the masks that we put on to navigate in the world, like that vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The deep you, the one that wakes up in the morning without the hair and the makeup done and still is okay with self.
And smelly
You
breath.
know, the deep stuff though, the values of the person, what you truly stand for, not the facade, not the mask, none of that, and certainly not the armor. Because people will wear armor thinking they have to protect themselves against others. And that may be true in the outside world. But when it comes to your soulmate, you want your soulmate to be the person that you can wake up next to without needing any armor at all. Warts and all, it's all okay. And you can only really truly connect with the soulmate when both of you are living in your own version of personal power. And then those versions of personal power are compatible. They don't need to be fully matching, because there are a lot of beautiful soulmates out there that are yin and yang, that are opposites attract, because that can still be really chemically beautiful. It's when you're not acting the whole time, you're not putting on a facade, not wearing your armor the whole time just to fit in with that second person.
There's so much truth in that. Like, I have this conversation with my friends. Like, there's times where I get dolled up and I go out, I'm like, I'd love to have a conversation with somebody, just like connect with the opposite sex. And just, especially with all the lockdowns and everything, it's like, oh, you know, just talking to the opposite sex. And that never happens. But when I'm kind of in a not a great mood, I can't be bothered kind of thing. I've put on my tracky dacks and something, like sometimes I've gone out in my pajamas to go to the store and just not give a, you know, beep. That is nearly every single time is when I will meet someone. So what you're saying about being completely authentic, I 100% agree, and have personally had those experiences myself.
Absolutely. And being okay with the fact that you're in your daggiest, most, you know, comfy clothes, don't care what they look like, not worrying about what the hair is the makeup done? I barely wear makeup, right? It's just not my jam.
Yeah,
I do at appropriate times, but you know, 99% of the time there's no makeup on my face. So I'm raw, vulnerable, and real 99% of my life. And I work with that ideal to go, well, if you can't accept me like this, then you don't get to see the dolled up pretty version of me. This is the raw canvas. Because when you think about it, when we meet men are always in their raw canvas 99% of the time, because they're not necessarily dolled up, prettied up. They just got up. And what's the saying? Men do a shit shower and shave and off they go.
Yeah. So although some of the guys out there will take much longer to get ready than I do.
Sometimes they do, right?
That takes the longest.
Yeah. But imagine what they would look like with morning hair. Are you still going to be attracted to them? Are they still going to, you know, you're still going to be confident around them? Is there going to be a change just because you got your makeup smeared on your face and they've got morning hair? Does that change the relationship? For those that are actually really aligned, it's not going to change a thing, because it's just the facade, not what's in here. So, you know, lockdown was the perfect time to be going to the supermarket in your Ugg boots. And meeting other people that are doing the same thing.
Finally, permission just to like be with no restrictions, no time to go anywhere. Personally, I absolutely enjoyed it. I was living in my ideal world.
Yeah, I was very surprised with how much I enjoyed it. Once I got over the initial feeling of being controlled and stifled, once I got over that, I'm like, this is gold. I get to just be home, and I just get to be around my most valuable people, bumming around in clothes I don't care in. Like, no one will know that I'm in my pajamas for 5 days straight. How cool is that?
I love
it. But it really helped me reset my expectations around myself and around others. And I went, you know what? This is what true alignment is. Being at probably our most vulnerable in our known history, and being okay with how that turned out, being okay with the emotions you felt in that time, being okay with how you felt going through that challenge. That's when you really find out, firstly, who you are, and secondly, who your partner or partner to be is, and what they're worthy of, and what their integrity is like. because it's when people are at their worst that you really find out who they're really like.
Agreed. I always
Yeah.
say that, and also around money. I find those two things brings out what people are really like inside. Yeah, I'm loving this conversation. It's 100% correct. It was so good during the lockdown. I mean, it wasn't good for everybody, obviously, and compassion to, to the people that are struggling out there and trying to feed their kids and all that. But it just allowed you to be in the same sort of pace as your spirit. Like your spirit could literally just do whatever it needed at any given moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I went through a massive transformation within the lockdown times. I'm in Melbourne, so we went through absolute hell and back. But it was the perfect reset for me. I was very busy, corporate, running multiple businesses, doing all sorts of doing the do.
Yeah.
Right up until, lockdown time. And I got off a plane the morning that the lockdowns were announced. So for me, it was like, wow, I'm going to be home. What's that?
Wow.
And one of my businesses, it'll be closed as of 2 weeks from now, because I've chosen to not put energy into it anymore, because the lockdown time, 2 years of having to battle to keep it open, it actually helped me realize that that wasn't where I wanted to spend my energy. And whilst it cost me a lot financially, it's done the best gift ever of helping me realize that's actually not where my heart and soul is. That was an anchor for me. It was a setback, a hold back for me. So I actually go, you know what? Whilst I'm not pleased it's closing, I'm actually pleased it's ending. That I don't have to put energy into that anymore. And it's really freed me up emotionally, physically, and financially to put my energies into things like my talks, my presentations, my trainings, my NLP. And my NLP business has flourished during lockdowns because people are looking for transformational, results-driven, success-driven skill sets. And that's exactly what I teach. So when I look at the business I'm closing, I go, wow, I thought that was going to be the golden ticket forever.
Yeah.
And what an opportunity to recognize with a massive slap in the face, that ain't it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, seriously, what a blessing. And I know for so many people that the blessings came in really, really hard ways, financially, emotionally, etc.
Yeah.
For me personally, yeah, very hard, very difficult. But in it being able to see it now, wow, what a blessing, because it actually allowed me to close down a business that was draining my energy, not giving me energy. And I'm really grateful it's worked out the way it has.
Yeah, me too. Like whenever I follow your posts and have a look, I see that your courses are so much in demand, and yeah, they're always booked in advance. And yeah, look, like what I said before, just the transformation on people's faces. There's photos of them like this, and you can see their energy field is so thin. And I mean, me being a clairvoyant, I can see that. But even without being clairvoyant, you can still see literally just their face, and their aura is all drawn in and sort of pointing down inwards. And then there's a picture after, and it's just like, boom, massive aura, shining bright, just like finally they've connected to who they are, and just remove the obstacles that have stopped them from just shining bright. And that actually leads us into the next thing I wanted to ask is, how do people, what are, say, top 5 things that you would recommend that people could do to get them in touch with their personal power?
Very much tapping into what they enjoy. What makes you feel good? Not what mum said you should do or what brother, sister, auntie, cousin said you should do. What makes you feel good? And that is my number one, absolutely first and foremost, because so many humans in this world do the do that they do based on someone else's opinion, based on someone else's guidance, based on someone else's suggestion or expectation. And when that's happening, there's a piece of your soul being ripped out and glued negatively to the person that made the suggestion or the expectation. So there's a dash of resentment. Instead of actually going, what do I want in life? And I fully appreciate not everyone is in tune with what that is yet. But we've got to start somewhere. We've got to start really doing the do of what we like doing. And that can be part of your personal habits. Do you meditate? Do you swim? Do you go for a run? Do you drink smoothies every morning? Like, what is your thing that you like doing that feeds your soul, nourishes your temple, and helps you feel good? So you've got to be doing things you enjoy doing, because otherwise, why are we living if you don't enjoy?
Yeah, it's so true when you say that. We just live in a world that's so fast paced that we're almost just trying to survive, that we leave very little time, if any, to the things that we enjoy. Yeah.
Exactly. And then what's the point, right? Number 2 for me would be absolutely letting go of the baggage. So disconnecting or reducing the amount of time spent with the negative ninnies in your life, with the, I call them energy vampires, the people that suck the energy out of you. So if there's someone or some people or a workplace or a partner or someone in your life that literally sucks the life out of you, really need to look at reducing the time spent with them. And if that means a full change of career to get out of a workplace, so be it. Doesn't mean you do it straight away, but you work towards it. If it means moving on from a partner, may not be straight away, but identifying it and realizing that's potentially not your future. So disconnecting or reducing the amount of time you spend with those people. 3 would be, once you do have an idea of what it is you want, pursuing that without guilt, pursuing it without resentment, actually not giving an F what other people think about your goals and your dreams, doing it for self, actually striving forward. And even if it's failing forward, keep moving forward in what you want, not what you think others want. And that kind of leads to, this is where
sometimes it's hard to differentiate between what you want and what you've been told that you want.
Yes, very hard to differentiate. And especially if you've got a degree in it, right? I've got a Master of Health Science.
Yeah.
And this is the clinic I'm closing down. So there is, or has been, a fair amount of grief for me to be able to go, I spent 5 years and 114 exams learning a very particular skill set that I love doing, but my soul doesn't love doing it. So I've got to look at, just because I've got, a double degree sitting on the wall doesn't equal my purpose, doesn't equal my passion. It's just a skill set I'm trained in. And I've been lucky enough to identify the difference. Yeah. People will spend 20, 30, 40 years in a career just because they've got the piece of paper to do it. But that doesn't mean they're fulfilled.
Yeah, that is so true. And there's just so much conditioning that comes with just that point. There's social conditioning. There's, the conditioning that how you were brought up. Like, a lot of people may not even have stopped to say, what is it exactly that I want to do? Because they're just so conditioned that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So number 4 for me would be disconnect from social media. Not permanently, not fully, just make boundaries. If social media and the addiction to checking whether people are liking, sharing, staring at your stuff and validating you because of it, then you're living in other people's expectations and their perceived expectations. So you are literally chasing that endorphin rush that someone liked your post or someone shared your image or whatever it was, someone commented. If you're chasing that, you're chasing external validation, which means it's got nothing to do with self and it's about someone else's likes and needs, etc. So putting boundaries around your social media, putting boundaries around your mainstream TV, putting boundaries around those other areas that probably don't fulfill you in any way, shape or form. In fact, they probably come under the energy vampire category. So really putting boundaries around it. It doesn't mean closing it off. It just means setting an allocated time, pop an alarm on to say, great, I'm going to scroll for 15 minutes, nothing longer. And when the beep, beep, beep goes off you get and do something else. Because people lose hours to social media and get off it feeling disheartened, disgruntled, all those negative emotions because they've compared themselves to others. They've seen everybody else's perfect image, but not the 400 bloopers.
And then they go, you know, they're living a miserable life, but they're like, oh my God, my life's amazing. Yeah. So there's that as well, you know.
Exactly. I was speaking to a beautiful client yesterday, a very young client, and I spoke to him about his social media use. And I said, you're not seeing the 4,000 takes that it took to get the right image. You're not seeing all the failures. You're only seeing the one thing that particular profile wants to show you. And he's like, oh my God, so true. And I'm like, so you're comparing yourself to the one image that turned out well and not the 400 that didn't. So if you can limit yourself to the amount of social media time, or just take a step back from it and realize what it really is. It really is the perfection image in that split-second moment of that particular take. And you don't see the behind the scenes stuff of that person's life. So that's definitely a big thing for me. 5 would be personal development. Whilst we may have talked about all the steps or things to recognize what it is you could do and should do, or what you could try, personal development is an ever evolving journey. And if you're not constantly peeling off the layers, you're either growing or you're dying, is one of the, guru's comments. And to be able to keep peeling off the layers of challenge, of regret, of resentment, of guilt, of frustration, of worry, keep peeling off those layers and let the real you come through. I use the onion analogy, but I also love the butterfly analogy. You've got to be able to break through that cocoon. And even once you're broken through, you've got to keep strengthening your wings. You've got to keep working on self to keep yourself, aligned and whole and with integrity. And that comes from, continuing to be around like-minded people that want to raise you up and not compete with you. Be collaborative with people. Be in that space of connection and community with like-minded souls, not those that want to play the tall poppy game and rip you down. Be in that personal development energy. And that can be still done from home. It doesn't have to be hire a coach. It doesn't have to be do a course. It can be read a book. Read a book instead of being on socials. Read a personal development book or an empowerment book instead of being on socials, dropping your mood.
100%. Like a lot of people can get aggravated with me, or they do get aggravated with me if they're trying to call me or get in contact with me and I'm not by my phone. Now, for me, I turn the social media on 3 times a day. And I do what I need to do. I give it a couple of hours each time and then I'm off. Because who owns who? Do I own the phone or does that phone own me? Do I own the computer or does that computer own me? You know what I mean? And also, not just that, I find personally that when I'm on the computer for long periods of time, I can literally feel that it's changing my chemistry in my brain. Like I start to become depressed. I literally feel my aura and see my aura become smaller. If I'm on the computer too long, I'm more susceptible to getting sick because my aura is, what's the word? Just become smaller. And I can just do literally a whole interview on that. There's so many elements, mentally, physically, emotionally, that sitting in front of a computer and that radiation, how it affects someone quite deeply. And a lot of people aren't aware of that at all.
Absolutely. I mean, the EMF frequencies are a real thing. And
they are a real thing.
We spend so much time on, or the average person spends so much time either on socials, laptops, iPads, or whatever, and they're not realizing that for every moment they're gifting to that device that they're actually taking from themselves. So, and this is
a quote.
Yeah.
Dr. Kim Brown said.
It's on the replay, it'll be fine. So this is where, personal development, get back to books, touch books. And I get that's not for everybody. I do a lot by audiobook, but I do audiobook where the things are not in my ears, the car's talking to me and things like that. But I do it in those short stints. But it means just not aimlessly scrolling where you stare and you've completely lost consciousness. You're just so tranced. Yep.
Yeah, you become
so tranced.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are literally in a trance. It's a form of hypnosis when you're sitting there staring, scrolling, which is why ads on socials have to become brighter and louder and more annoying to actually wake you up out of your trance and get your attention. And these days, the average attention span of a human is 3 seconds. We've finally gone less than a goldfish.
Wow. Look, there's so
Seriously.
much good gold nuggets in there. Immediately, like when you being a hypnosis coach and a trainer, for you to say that doing this is like a form of hypnosis, that's massive. I mean, I personally feel that I'll do it for about a minute and I'm like, no, I'll feel my mind becoming number and literally going down about 20 decibels in the intelligence section. But to actually have someone that is just so educated as you to say it, that's a big thing. And I think it's something that people really need to hear.
Well, how many relationships struggle because one partner and the other one's trying to have a conversation? What? Did you say something? Like the disconnect of conversation and the disconnect of connection to a partner, to a family, friend, mother, father, whoever's trying to get your attention, because you're lost here. And you can see it in people, right? People go to cafes and they're sitting across from their partner, but both.
Yeah, you can see a table,
They're lost.
a whole family sitting at a table at a restaurant and they're all on their phones. It's like, you know, I'm 45 and I luckily got to experience what it was like to not have that. And it was a completely different connection. When you talk to people, they were there.
Yeah, very different world now. And this is why each of us actually need to work at being present, because the distractions are huge. Back in the day, you weren't competing against mobile phones. You weren't competing against YouTube. You weren't competing against any of that. You were simply present.
Yeah, you were.
Each human had interaction with each other. If you wanted your mum to pick you up from somewhere, you had to communicate that and make clear instructions before you went anywhere, because once you left the house, you weren't glued to your phone. You didn't have one. So you had to communicate well. You had to be clear with your times, with your instructions, with the meeting point.
Show up.
You had to be
no late minute texting where you're like, "Hi, sorry, I can't make it." You had to be, because that person will be waiting for you. So I guess there was more integrity as well, because
a lot more, because you didn't have last minute, oh, sorry, can't make it, see ya.
Yeah.
You didn't have any of that.
No,
you
couldn't do that. Yeah.
And if someone was 10 minutes late, you worried about them because you had no way of communicating or connecting. So you assumed, okay, well, I'll wait another 10 minutes before I start going to the landline and the telephone booth to make phone calls to find out what's happening. Has anyone seen you? So the communication has changed so much. And the communication between couples and partnerships has gone from verbal or talk on a wired telephone, where you could hear tone of voice, you could hear what they meant, you could understand the nuances in the sound of what they were doing, or the gestures, or like if your partner was sitting there staring at you like this, you knew they were bored. But if they're texting something to you, which tones it got attached? Is it a happy emoji or is it a grumpy emoji? Like,
miscommunication has there been from texting? You can't see, depending on how you're feeling. Like if you're in a bad mood, like, and then you read it the next day, you're like, oh, actually.
Yeah. But even so, like, you know, if I was to text my husband, his always one word response, okay. Now, is that an okay? Or is it an okay? Like, I can't tell from a text what tone's on it, because it's the same 2 letters that come through regardless of what I've said. He's just acknowledging he's got the message. But what I then read into it's up to me. Whereas when we were on the phone or face to face, I could tell, was he doing an okay or a okay? I could tell the difference, but by text you can't. So it's no surprise that couples struggle with communication if it's all done via our phones.
Yeah, I mean, we've only got 5 minutes left, but just even bringing up that point, I would just leads into a whole different category. You know, I feel like people, because of the phones and because of the internet and all that sort of stuff, they're less invested in people. They almost treat people like they're an expendable mass that they could just be replaced at any time, because, you know, they're connected to this whole picture, especially with dating, you know, even perhaps that's why I love love so much about this Awake dating app is because I'm holding people accountable to make sure they do what they say and they say what they do. It's completely different to any other dating app that's out there. You know, you can't just swipe and be on your way. Like, you know, you're accountable that you said that you were going to go on a date with this person and you get reminders and so forth, so forth and so forth. So, but that's another story. But yeah, I've just found in general, people don't almost value people as much as they used to and value their time. And everybody's kind of replaceable now that we have all these other options. And but then people are everywhere but almost nowhere, you know.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of dichotomies at the moment, and I think that's where people are challenged as to where they fit in. Where do I fit into this ever-evolving space? And that's where self-doubt and lack of self-belief and lack of self-awareness and lack of consciousness, all of those things come into it and become massive triggers for people, because too much is moving too fast.
Yeah.
And it can be very overwhelming for people. They just, you know, don't know where to go or to start. And when people, you know, you ask someone, what is it you want? And they go, I haven't got a clue. I just don't want this.
I'm just trying to survive. Like, I have the luxury of asking what I want.
Yeah, literally survival. And each day seems to be the same. It's like Groundhog Day. You know, if I made it through the day and I managed to get to bed alive, I've done all right.
Yeah.
I'm like, whew, that's not a great place to be living. It's not, it's coming back to the first thing we said. If it needs to come back to joy. What brings you joy? If you're not living in a joyful place, something's got to change.
Yeah, well, just when you said when you go to bed and you're like, I've survived, people's nervous systems are absolutely wrecked just trying to survive. And I remember with my sessions with you, one thing that really stood out to me was that it really calmed my nervous system in a way that I can't say I've ever felt before. Yeah.
We gave you a beautiful factory reset.
Yeah.
Took away all of the baggage, all of the extra that you just don't need to be carrying around every day, filling up your emotional cup, taking up space. It takes up real estate, and it's unnecessary. It's heavy. This is why people suffer from extreme exhaustion, because they're carrying literally the baggage of the past with them 24/7.
And I'm talking past. I mean, there were some sessions we went back like 15 lives. You know, yeah, and it definitely does work. That after some of your sessions, I was confronted with a lot of aggression from people, and because it helps you just clear all that stuff, there's just literally no trigger. Like, I remember someone would be yelling at me and abusing me. I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry that you're feeling that's happening for you. Not on an arrogant level, but I literally just would simply look at them with absolutely no trigger, but just see literally that there's someone that's triggered and just have compassion. Oh, honey, we've got less than a minute left.
Let's go.
So nice to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time and everything that you're bringing into this world. And we'll put all your links and let people know where they can find you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brown. All right, lovely. Have a nice day and we'll talk to you soon.
You too, darling. Bye.
Bye.